So there was one point in my career I actually had the great pleasure of working with Oliver Stone, who I'm a huge fan of. He's made some great movies like Wall Street and Platoon, and wrote Scarface as well. So he's a writer-director, and I admire him greatly, and I had the chance to meet him, and he's an incredible guy. He's very engaged, he's very aware, he's very present. I find that interesting because sometimes you meet people at higher levels and they're not exactly like that. Sometimes they're very guarded, but Oliver is very open and is a very, very kind person. At least that was my experience with him. But the one thing about Oliver Stone that really shocked me, and maybe it probably shouldn't have, but we were working on a project with him, developing a project. It ultimately got made. It was actually the story of the guy who started Chippendales, the male dance club. And this gentleman had immigrated to the States from India and was basically pursuing the American dream. And it was a great story. But we had Oliver on board, and we had a meeting with Oliver. And the thing I should tell you about this story, though, this gentleman, his name was Steve Banerjee. I don't know if you saw the series. It was on Hulu. I think it was on Hulu. It's on one of the streaming services anyway. Steve Banerjee was he was living the American dream, but he was quite ruthless, and turned out, actually, without getting into the whole story, which is fascinating, he murdered his partner, actually, and then he was trying to kill somebody else, a detective who was working on the case. But so the guy was just totally out of control, and not a very sympathetic character. And so we had this meeting with Oliver Stone, and the first thing Oliver Stone said was, why do we like this guy? Okay, why do we care about this guy at all? And I have to tell you, that shocked me, because that seems to me like just a writing 101 kind of thing, right? Like when you start writing, that's like one of the first rules of writing, is that, you know, you want to really like your main character. And it's, you know, I would say it's a rule, but it's probably more of a guideline, because a lot of screenwriting rules can be broken, but you have to be careful with that. And that's what this video is about, because even the great Oliver Stone, when he starts developing projects, and this project, we didn't even have a screenplay yet on this. So, you know, based on a true story, and he's trying to find the way in, and his question was, why do we like this guy? Why do we care about this guy? Okay, because you have to create some kind of engagement in a screenplay, and if you're not on board with the main character, if you don't care about the main character, you're probably not going to be fully engaged in the storytelling. Now, this isn't, you know, this is, again, this isn't true for every single movie probably, and I've got to think of different examples, but, you know, Oliver wrote a movie called Scarface, and Tony Montana is, you know, probably one of the most reprehensible, you know, people you ever want to meet, but you love him. You absolutely like the guy, and you're kind of rooting for the guy. I mean, you know, and if you don't like him, you understand where he's coming from. And the great thing about that movie is Tony Montana has a point of view. He believes in something, okay? And it may not be what you believe in, but he has an ethos, okay? And a character that has that is somebody that you can connect to on some level, okay? Because they believe in something deeper than themselves. And in Scarface, if you listen to the things Tony Montana says, he actually believes in things that maybe you wouldn't think a drug dealer would hold dear or value in life. But he definitely gets it, and he's chosen his path, and he knows the path that he's chosen, and he knows what will become of him. But I always, you know, that just always caught me by surprise when Oliver said that, because I always thought of him, I guess, as this kind of break all the rules renegade filmmaker, and here he is. He comes into the first development meeting, and the first thing he says is, why do we like this guy? Okay, so think about that in your writing. Okay, think about the characters, think about why we care about them, why we want to watch the movie, why we want to go on that journey with them. Okay, a lot of times it's probably because we like them. And actually, that brings to mind another example of this. I worked with George Gallo, who wrote wrote Midnight Run. And Midnight Run, we definitely like the Charles Grodin character, but the De Niro character, you know, we're not so sure about. He's kind of a real hard ass, and a lot of the notes George got initially from the studio was, you know, why do we like this guy? We got to make this guy more likable. And George had to fight them on that, right? Because you know, Grodin was already the access to the storytelling, but the studio really felt like, oh, we have to like both these guys. And that's not the way it works all the time, okay? That's when you can't, that's when you really don't want to be just following rules. You want to think about the storytelling, you want to think about what serves the movie and what makes the screenplay, you know, attractive to an audience, and what makes a character real enough and somebody that, you know, is interesting to, that, you know, you want to watch this character, okay? So you may not like him, but he may be interesting, he may be very watchable. But usually you want to have that access character, and in Midnight Run, the access character is going to be Grodin. Now, there is a scene in Midnight Run where they go visit De Niro's family, and you find out backstory on De Niro, that he has a wife and he has a daughter, and so that makes him a lot more sympathetic. And it's an interesting turn in the movie because you don't know anything about him in the beginning of the movie. You just see him as being a complete hard ass, and then we actually go to his home and we see what his family life's like. Anyway, there's an example of creating characters that you want to watch, who are engaging. I hope that helps, and we'll talk to you soon.